Hi everyone, welcome to DevOps Info channel. Today we are going to take a look at one of the Azure Identity Governance preview feature, which is the Lifecycle Workflows. With the Lifecycle Workflows, we can automate the three fundamental lifecycle activities, which is the joiner, mover, and leaver. With this new identity governance feature, Lifecycle Workflow, this will help companies to manage the Azure AD cloud-only identities in an effective way. There are numerous pre-configured actions that can be triggered through this lifecycle workflows, and this can help to satisfy your needs of your company to maintain the hygiene of cloud-only identities. To construct the new processes for joiner, mover, and leaver, uh, these tasks can be configured just in few minutes, and then they can be implemented as well. To make it simple, they have included multiple jobs that can be, categorized as a tasks and added to your life cycle. So basically, the life cycle workflow will have a set of predefined processes, and then they will have a scoped set of tasks for users that is, targeted to run this particular configured actions. And but one thing to keep in mind is like, if you want to utilize these features fully, um, it's applicable only for the cloud only workloads. Though there are options to use few of the features for an account which is created locally and synchronized through the Azure AD Connect, or if your HR solution is present locally and the automation is triggered in that direction. Um, or if you want to give access to an on-premise application and resources, then you need to enable the group write back also if you have an Azure AD Connect configuration. So to keep in mind, this is fully enabled solution only for cloud only identities. If you're trying to use it for a Azure AD Connect, where your accounts are created locally and then synchronized, then you can use only a few of the features. Like for example, if you want to um, send a temporary access pass to a user who has joined, or if you want to add that particular user to a team or Office 365 group, that is possible for a synchronized account. But just in case, if you're trying to trigger any uh, leaver process, like disable the account, delete the account, or add to any of the resources in the on-premise, that is not possible. Yeah, you have to keep that in mind. So to look into the lifecycle workflows, all you need to do is just navigate to the identity governance section, and then you have to select the lifecycle workflows, which is in the preview. As it is mentioned here, it's in the preview, but you can always test and see the behavior on your development tenant. So when you click on the getting started, this will provide us the direction on how to creating the lifecycle workflows. As it is mentioned here, we need to choose a template to create a predefined task. So for example, when I click on create workflow, so here I see the option joiner, and then onboard a new hire employee, real-time employee termination, pre-offboarding, offboard an employee, post-offboarding an employee. There are multiple templates. In our example, I'm just going to choose the workflow, which is onboard a pre-hire employee. So when you click on that, so it comes with the predefined name and description, which you could modify. And this is something trigger details, which we'll have a look at the details in few minutes. But one thing to keep in mind is there is a little bit of prerequisites to use this Azure, to use this lifecycle workflow. You need to have the Azure AD Premium P2 license for this feature to work. And also the other important thing is you need to prepare your user accounts for lifecycle workflow to scope them, because you need to create some logic on how to pick the required account to the correct lifecycle workflow. For example, let's take a look at onboard pre-hire employee. So in the next step, when I go into the configure scope, so in the configure scope, you can create a workflow like if the user is from this particular department, marketing, then you can target him to a particular workflow, or even you can choose a property of city and country and then trigger a particular workflow. Uh, so this pre-hired scenario, is will trigger only based on the scope that you're defining here. So that's very important to keep in mind. But I have already created um, some set of workflows which we'll have a look at them for a better understanding. So I'm just going back to the pre-hire workflow which I have created. So I'm going to the lifecycle workflow, and then in the workflows preview, you can see the list of workflows which you have already created. I have one created which is onboard pre-hire employee. So when I click on the onboard pre-hire employee, so like this is the preview which I have it. And then first let's take a look at the properties. So when you go into the properties, so I have the name, onboard, and description is the one. And then if you see the details in the execute conditions, so here you see like configure the event timing for onboard. So this is very important because based on the time, like when you want to trigger the workflow, this will start. So if you set this, you can set this value from 0 to 60. So the workflow that you're triggering, if you wanted to run it on a schedule, then it will work only based on the timing that you're defining over here. And coming to the scope detail, in the scope, like in my example, I have set a property country equal to Netherlands and city is equal to Amsterdam. So whatever the user, when they onboarded have this property, then they will the workflow will trigger. Uh, this is the part for scoping, but there is another important thing which you need to do is like in the pre-hire scenario, you want to send a temporary access pass to your manager. So in order to do that, the manager attribute needs to be populated on this particular account. So because when you only create a manager attribute on this account, uh, a temporary access pass would be sent to the manager email address. So the manager attribute should be populated to this particular account, and then the manager should have an email address. But that is completely done during your automation workflow when you provision this new employee. Like for example, you create a new employee, that particular employee needs to have a manager, and then that manager needs to have a mail. Only then he can receive the temporary access pass. uh, and another important thing, the onboard pre-hire employee template uses is like it uses something called rule based. So this one has something value which is dependent, is called employee hire date. So this employer hire date is something which you saw previously. I can show you that. Okay, in the trigger details, you have the days from the event, and then you see the event user attribute is employee hire date. So you need to define the employer hire date for this account when you're creating it. I can show you that example. I have created one user, which I'm going to show you in few seconds. Still logging in. It could take few more seconds. Okay, so I'm just going back to my Azure users, and then for example, I'm just searching for the test user which I created is John. I'm going to search for the user John over here. John Frederick I have created. So when you look into the user properties, so here I have something called employer hire date. So this employer hire date is the important value which is required for this which is required for this onboard pre-hire employee to work, because in your trigger you have days, event timing, and then the email has to trigger before 7 days. This value can be anything from 0 to 60, which is really good. And this is the scope also which you are defining. So based on the trigger and scope, it will work. And one important thing to know, to make also note here is in the trigger details. Uh, you have okay you have no option to modify at this point in time. And then this workflow will, like when it is turned on, it will be automatically running once in every 3 hours. The moment, like when you enable it, if it is on a schedule, then it will run once in every 3 hours. Every 3 hours, the lifecycle workflow will look for users that meets this criteria, and then corresponding execution will take place. However, if you want to, do it right away, then there is also option which I can show you in the onboard PreHire template which I have created. Again, going back to the lifecycle workflows, in the workflows, when you select this, you have an option run on demand. So in this run on demand, I can just simply go and select the user whomever I want to do, I can do that. But when you select, when you create a workflow, then it always presents. It runs once in every 3 hours as per the schedule. Um, and you can see that option in here. Okay, so when you go to the properties preview, you see the schedule workflow, enable schedule. This will run once in 3 hours, and enable, that will help you to do uh, uh, the ephemeral run. Like if you want to run it on a demand, then you will be able to do it from here. Yeah, so this is the page. And if you want to check the workflow status, you can also track the state of the workflow. So you have three distinct data, like user runs, and then tasks. All these things you can see on this page. Like for example, the total process users with failures and failed tasks, and number of tasks. Okay, in this example, I wanted to show you something important, because when you go into the lifecycle workflow, and I'm going into the onboard pre-hire employee. So here you have something called tasks. When you click on the tasks, you can create multiple tasks over here for onboard pre-hire employee. You can further customize them. For example, these things were not we had only the generate, tap, and send email. This one will generate a temporary access pass and send a welcome email to the manager email address. In my case, I have just filled the user manager as my account, which is Satish, and I got the welcome email for this user, which is really good. And You can also send a welcome email. For example, the first action is like I'm just generating a temporary access pass, sending it to the particular manager, and the manager sends the temporary access pass to the new employee, and then the new employee logs in, and after he logs in, he sees a welcome email, which is good. And then the next part is like you could also add this particular user to Teams, which I have done in my example. I've just selected one team, and then I've added him to the newsletter, so that the moment when he logs in, he has access to one of the default team where he can read and get to know about the company. And the other part is like if you want to add him to a group, that is also possible. But one thing to keep in mind important over here is like you can add him to cloud only security group. You can add him to Office 365 group. But if you're trying to add him to a mail enabled security group, or if you're trying to add him to any local any synchronized group, that is not working. So it's you have to keep in mind it's only for cloud only security group and Office 365 group, which is most of the case we use. And then yeah, this is like if you want to add multiple tasks, you can just simply go to the tasks, and then there are multiple things you can do. um, if you can also send a hiring manager an email, and there is also a task which is something interesting, where if you have logic apps, you could also custom you can also do a custom extension, and then do the advanced configuration. That is possible. Excuse me. And yeah, so this is the way you can further customize. But if you want to further look into if my tasks are completed, so what you can do is you can see the tasks preview. And in the tasks preview, sorry, not here. Okay, you have to go to the workflow history. So in the workflow history, you have three pivots like users, runs, and tasks. So here in the user summary, I see, okay, this is for the John Frederick, successful, failed, and totally uh, like 20 tasks has been created. So I just go to the runs. In the run summary, you see three failed runs and then totally five process runs. If I scroll down, if you see, okay, the first thing is like the failed one. Let's take a look at the failed one. When I click on the failed tasks, so like first task itself was failed. There are four tasks assigned, but the first task was failed because here the employee hired attribute is missing. Because I wanted to show this demo without filling the employee hired attribute. So here, if the employee hired attribute is not populated, then the automation is not going to start. The lifecycle workflow is not going to start. Uh, and let's go back to the next task, which was failed. So the first one, since the employee hire rate is missing, the other subsequent task was not running. That's the reason you see that. And if you take a look at the second one, so here the total number of tasks is four, and then it failed because let's take a look at it. Why it failed? Because you see, like the first three completed, generate tap and send an email completed, welcome email completed, add user to Teams completed. But if you take a look at add users to group, it failed because I tried to update a mail enabled security group that is not working. So you need to make sure that it's possible only to add a cloud only security group and Office 365 group. This is the one thing. And if you take a look at the completed one, for example, I click on the first one completed. Um, yeah, you see the task is four, and all the four tasks would have been completed, which you could see, like generate tap and send an email, send an this tap is temporary access pass, send a welcome email, add user to Teams, and add users to groups. So finally, you are able to complete all the onboarding tasks from here. And also, I received a welcome email because I received an email about the temporary access pass about this particular user, and then I can share it to him, and that would be really helpful for him to proceed further in onboarding. So, like as I said earlier, this is mostly suited for cloud-only accounts. However, for the pre-hired tasks, we can send a temporary access pass, a welcome email, and probably add them to a Microsoft Teams team because it is going to be only cloud-only groups and Office 365 group in this example. This will definitely ease in the onboarding process for a user, and like he can get to understand about the company and can read some of the generic information until he gets all the access. And another important point to note here is that if you try to like add a mail enabled security group, it does not allow. So it's important to keep this mind in your automation, or if you're planning to use this in your testing feature. um, and Also, the other important thing is like in the execution condition, we need to define the number of days where you need to turn this event on. Like for example, when you do this employee offboard, sorry, the employee pre onboard, you need to define the correct number of days when the this email and temporary access pass to started. And like you also need to make sure the temporary access pass is enabled in your tenant, and how long is the temporary access pass validation. For example, the temporary access pass is enabled in your tenant to a value of 8 hours. Then you need to modify your automation and then send this temporary access pass. within that particular time. Because if you send the temporary access pass uh, like during the night, and in the morning, if the user, the manager sends it to the new employee during the time, the temporary access pass would cross the time limit, and it would not be working. So this is very important to know what is your current configuration of your temporary access pass, and the temporary access pass needs to be enabled. Um, and you also have a version preview, which I wanted to show here. In this version preview, it is very nice. It shows you the version. It provides you the version history of the complete workflow, like, and also we have something called execution conditions. In the execution conditions, we saw the thing which we did earlier. But at this point in time, we don't have any option to change, since it's in preview. Probably we could see something updated version in the future. Um, so to summarize, workflow helps a lot, and then it can prepare a user to work when he first joined the organization, so that they can have some access to the data, and they get the proper membership, and they can start their work. For example, when you also go into a workflow, offboarding, this is also nice. In the offboarding properties, sorry, in the task properties is also the same. You need to trigger a execution condition. And when you look into the tasks for the offboarding, this is also really interesting. Like, for example, remove licenses for the user, remove user from all teams, and delete user account. But keep this in mind, this delete user account is applicable only for the cloud only user accounts. Yeah. So this remove all licenses for a user, remove all users from teams. This can partially help you in taking care of the offboarding process. That's very nice. And the you also have some real-time employee termination. If you want to do that, you also have some set of tasks that you can add, like remove users from groups, remove users from teams, and then send email before user last day, and send email user after last day. And then the delete user account is applicable only for the cloud only accounts. Yeah. So to summarize, I think this is what I can tell at this moment about the real-time the lifecycle workflow, because it's in the preview at the moment. Um, so this workflow can help a lot for organization to add additional procedures to a HR-driven provisioning process, and that will help to streamline and automate your onboarding and offboarding process. This will also help you to quickly construct and manage processes in a single area, and centralize your workflow process. um, and also, by enabling this, you get rid of other dependencies, and the progress to get the same objective. In few cases, like, you might have multiple tasks. Okay, one task to offboard the on-premise resources, and other tasks to offboard the online resources. All this can be done in this can, if you have a complete cloud only identities, then you can do this fully from this side. But if you have something on-premise and cloud-only identities, all the cloud-only identities can be handled from this lifecycle workflows preview. I think this will definitely increase the effectiveness of onboarding and offboarding process in any organization. I would suggest to take a look at this, and wait for the general release to see what are the other additional benefits that is coming from Microsoft. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.